Today was the fourth day since I discovered the stray mother cat and her 5 newborn kittens living beneath a tree on the hillside. And somehow, visiting them had already become part of my daily routine. The moment I woke up this morning, I immediately wondered how they were doing. Did the kittens stay warm during the night? Did the mother cat get enough rest? Was she still producing enough milk for all 5 babies? These thoughts stayed in my head the entire morning. So before heading to the hillside again, I prepared more food for her. This time, I wanted to bring something a little better. I boiled eggs, bought cat food, salmon puree, and milk for the exhausted mother cat. After taking care of 5 newborn kittens for days while living outside, she desperately needed nutrition. Honestly, every time I saw how thin she was, it hurt my heart a little. The weather was cooler today. Dark clouds moved slowly across the sky, and the wind blowing through the grass felt colder than usual. As I walked toward the hillside, I started worrying again. I kept thinking about how vulnerable newborn kittens are. At that age, even small changes in weather can become dangerous. And their shelter was still just an old broken bamboo basket lying under a tree. No walls. No roof. No protection except their mother. When I finally reached the tree, I immediately looked toward the basket. And thankfully, they were still there. The mother cat was curled around her kittens tightly, almost completely wrapping her body around them to keep them warm. Only her eyes were visible at first. The moment she saw me, she slowly lifted her head. But unlike the first day, she didn't look terrified anymore. She looked cautious, but calm. That small change honestly felt emotional to me. For days ago, she looked like she expected danger from everything around her. Now, at least when she saw me, there seemed to be less fear in her eyes. I slowly crouched near the basket and spoke softly to her. The kittens immediately started making tiny squeaking noises when they heard movement nearby. They were getting louder every day. A few of them were even crawling around much more confidently now. Still clumsy. Still tiny. But definitely stronger than before. I carefully placed the food beside the basket. The moment I opened the salmon puree, the mother cat reacted instantly. Her nose lifted into the air, and she stared directly at the food. I could tell immediately that she smelled it before even seeing it. This time, she didn't hesitate very long. She slowly walked toward me and sat down only a short distance away while I prepared the food. That moment surprised me more than I expected. Because just a few days ago, she could barely stay near me without panicking. Now she was calmly waiting nearby while I opened the containers. Little by little, she was beginning to trust me. I squeezed the salmon puree onto a plate and placed small pieces of boiled egg beside it. The mother cat immediately began eating. And honestly, I had never seen her so focused on food before. She loved the salmon puree. She kept eating quickly, then stopping for 1 second before continuing again, almost like she couldn't believe the food was real. Watching her enjoy something so simple made me unexpectedly emotional. Because for stray animals, a good meal is probably rare. Most days are likely just survival. Searching for scraps. Avoiding danger. Trying not to starve. And now, on top of surviving for herself, she also has 5 babies depending entirely on her. While she ate, the kittens slowly crawled around inside the basket behind her. One of them somehow climbed halfway onto another kitten and got stuck there. Another one crawled directly into the blanket and disappeared completely. Their movements were still awkward and slow, but there was something adorable about watching them explore their tiny world for the first time. The mother cat kept turning around every few seconds to check on them while eating. Even when hungry, she never stopped paying attention to her babies. That instinct was constant. At one point, one of the kittens started crying loudly after crawling too far from the others. Immediately, the mother cat stopped eating and rushed back to the basket. She gently pulled the kitten closer using her paw before licking its head repeatedly. The kitten quieted down almost instantly. That small moment felt incredibly touching. Because no matter how tired she was, her babies always came first. After she finished the salmon puree, I poured fresh cat food into another container beside her. Today, she seemed much more relaxed while eating. She even sat with her back partially turned toward me at one point. That may sound small, but for a stray animal, it's actually a huge sign of trust. Animals surviving outside stay alert constantly. They don't easily expose themselves or relax around humans. So seeing her lower her guard little by little felt meaningful. While she ate, I carefully adjusted the blankets and cloth inside the broken bamboo basket again. The weather was becoming colder, and I wanted the kittens to stay as warm as possible. The kittens were so tiny that they still fit together in one small pile against their mother's stomach. Looking at them sleeping together made the entire scene feel peaceful despite the sadness of their situation. Sometimes I forget how small newborn kittens really are until I see them up close. Their paws are tiny. Their ears are tiny. Even their cries sound fragile. And yet somehow, these tiny creatures are already fighting to survive in the world. The mother cat eventually finished eating and slowly climbed back into the basket beside her babies. For the first time since I met her, she actually stretched her body out fully while lying down. She looked exhausted. But maybe also slightly more comfortable than before. Maybe for the first time in a while, she wasn't thinking only about hunger. One of the kittens climbed onto her front leg while sleeping. Another pressed directly against her face. And she simply closed her eyes and stayed still, letting all 5 kittens use her body for warmth. That image honestly stayed with me for a long time. A tired stray mother cat using the last of her energy to protect her babies under a tree on a hillside. There's something incredibly powerful about a mother's love, even in animals. No matter how hard life becomes, they still keep going for their children. I sat beside them quietly for a while longer. The wind moved softly through the grass around us. The sky above the hillside looked darker now, and it seemed like rain might arrive later. That thought worried me immediately. Because their shelter was still far from safe. I started thinking about ways I could improve it for them in the future. Maybe bringing a stronger box. Maybe adding waterproof material. Maybe finding a safer hidden area nearby. The more days passed, the more attached I became to this little family. At first, I only wanted to feed a hungry stray cat. Now I found myself thinking about them constantly. Wondering if the kittens would survive. Wondering if the mother cat would eventually trust people completely again. Wondering whether these tiny babies might someday live safely indoors instead of outside under a tree. Before leaving, I refreshed their water and placed extra food nearby again. The mother cat quietly watched everything I was doing. Then something happened that genuinely surprised me. As I slowly reached toward the food container, the mother cat carefully walked closer and gently rubbed the side of her face against my hand for just 1 second. Very quickly. Then she stepped back again. I froze for a moment because I honestly wasn't expecting it. It was such a small gesture. But it felt incredibly meaningful. 4 days ago, she was terrified of me. Now, for the first time, she willingly touched my hand herself. That tiny moment made all the worry and effort feel worth it. Not because I wanted affection from her, but because it meant she finally felt a little safer. And for an animal that has probably struggled for survival every day, feeling safe even briefly matters so much. As I stood up to leave, all 5 kittens were sleeping quietly together again. The mother cat looked up at me one last time from inside the basket. And this time, her eyes didn't look frightened anymore. Just tired. Gentle. And calm. I slowly walked away from the hillside feeling both sad and hopeful at the same time. Sad because stray animals live such difficult lives. But hopeful because maybe, little by little, things were improving for this tiny family beneath the tree. I truly hope these kittens grow stronger every day. And I hope their mother finally realizes she doesn't have to face the world completely alone anymore.